That's Weird Al's Eat It right there for you. Very appropriate for our next segment, which of course deals with food. In this case, real food and fake food. The big question is, how do you tell the difference? We spoke to the author of a new book to find out.
What if I told you that the lobster roll you're eating isn't actually lobster? Or the tuna you had for lunch isn't tuna? Food and travel columnist Larry Olmsted exposes the issue in his new book, Real Food, Fake Food.
When I travel, I try to eat the local cuisine wherever I go, and I had a few examples where I would come home and try to have similar dishes, and it just never tasted right.
Olmsted says a big reason is food regulations in the U.S., especially for restaurants, are significantly more lax than those in many other countries, and that means companies get away with using cheaper, sometimes deceptive ingredients. According to one study, an estimated 80 to 85% of what's sold as pure olive oil in the States is actually diluted with other oils. And that red snapper you ordered for dinner? It likely was a cheaper, nutritionally inferior substitute, because once you cut up a whitefish, they all look the same. Even supermarket labels can be deceiving.
A lot of consumers like myself might say, I want to eat naturally raised beef or pork or chicken, but that's really hard to do when you go to the supermarket and everything says natural on it, because natural has no definition. People see grass-fed beef, they're told grass-fed beef is better for you, but grass-fed on the label doesn't mean that it's what I would call grass-fed beef.
But it's not hopeless. Olmsted says the key is knowing what to look for. That's sometimes as simple as buying foods whole.
So for anything, whether it's coffee, you buy coffee beans, you're going to get coffee for sure. You buy ground coffee, you can't tell if it's adulterated.
Another tip, look at the ingredient list on packaged goods. The Food and Drug Administration is fairly lax about other labels, but very strict about those.
And now you might be wondering how you can go out and tell the difference between the real food or the fake food. And sometimes it can be harder than you think, but Larry Olmsted is here to give us some tips on some of the more common things you might see out of place at the grocery store. Larry, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks.
So I know olive oil is a big one. Tell us why.
There have been problems with oil being labeled extra virgin that doesn't meet the extra virgin standard, and it's very hard to tell just looking at the bottle. I recommend, if you can, buying at a store that actually lets you smell and taste the oil, which some gourmet stores do, because when you taste it and smell it, you can really tell the difference. And once you try good oil, you'll know what it tastes like.
Oh, you can tell the difference.
Much different from kind of your standard run-of-the-mill olive oil.
And then what do you look for on the bottle?
I would look for a pressed on or harvested on date, not a use by date. The use by date is kind of irrelevant. So you want it to have been pressed or harvested within, say, 6 to 9 months.
So you look for that on the label,
yep,
and then you know you're getting
only good olive oil will have that on the label. Most bottles don't.
Parmesan cheese is another big one. These look so similar. I wouldn't be able to tell the difference, I don't think, in a store.
Right, and most people can't. So, but real Parmesan Reggiano cheese from Italy is a very pure product with no drugs, one of the most natural cheeses you can buy, which is why it's a premium product. And the way you can tell is the rind itself has the words Parmesan Reggiano embossed in it, always. If you don't see that on the rind, you know it's not from Italy.
And of course you can taste the difference, but this is actually even a good domestic.
Yeah, this is one of the best domestic ones you could buy.
Okay. And then sushi. I know
Sushi's a big problem.
Which kills me because I love sushi.
It is. So with fish in general, it's better the more you can see, a whole fish. So in nigiri sushi, where it's prepared like this, you get a better look at it. And if you look at this crab, for example, this is actual crab.
Right.
Most sushi places you go, it's a block of that sort of reconstituted crab stuff.
Right.
You can see it.
So it would be harder to fake a cut of salmon like
this. This is a
example.
wild Pacific salmon. Look at the color difference. This is supermarket salmon.
Yeah.
You know how bright and vibrant that is.
I think I'm going to have to taste it just to make sure it's the real thing.
And the one other tip I like to give is if you buy, I like eel, right? This is unagi. Not everybody does, but if you do, that's the kind of thing, it's not going to be faked. It's a less expensive product. It's very recognizable. So sometimes when you go with the cheaper fish, you're better off because they're not as widely counterfeited.
At least you're getting what you're actually ordering. And then how does the tuna work? How do you fake tuna?
Well, there's a lot of substitutes for tuna. Escalar is a fish that's used to substitute tuna. It's much cheaper. Tilapia has been used. A lot of times in rolls, all you see is sort of a pencil-sized sliver of kind of grayish, pinkish fish, and you can't really tell by looking at it what that is.
All right, so the more of the product you can see, generally speaking, the better.
Yep.
All right. Larry Olmsted, the author of Real Food, Fake Food. So many more examples in the book. Larry, thank you so much for being here this morning and for showing us really eye-opening stuff.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.